Hi, everybody, and welcome back. This is going to be another video in my series of records that I will keep if, no matter what. If I had to purge my collection, these are the records that I would keep forever. And I do limit myself, for the sake of these videos, to picking one album per artist. So, I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing if you've done so. And if you haven't done so, I would appreciate it if you would click that subscribe button. So, let's get started. We're starting with the letter J, and it's going to be Tommy James and the Shondells' greatest hits. Being a child of the 60s, I grew up on this music. Every one of these songs was a hit. I loved them. Many of them have been covered by other artists. What we've got, I Think We're Alone Now, Hanky Panky, Crystal Blue Persuasion, Sugar on Sunday, Crimson and Clover. Just one hit after another. Interesting story about Tommy James and Roulette Records. It was pretty much run by the mob, and Tommy really didn't get paid. He didn't get his royalties like he should. He would just go into the office and complain that he needed some money, and they'd cut him a check, and that would be it. And then when he ran out of money, he'd ask for more. Very, very interesting book. Get the Tommy James book and read it, and you'll see how much the mob was in control of a lot of the records from this era, especially the Roulette era. Next up is Jesus Christ Superstar, 1970. I listened to this record non-stop when I first got it. I loved it. Now, of course, I listen to it once a year on Easter. It comes with a nice booklet. Just a great album, great concept. They did a wonderful job in the songwriting and the performance, and I just can't say enough about it. You've got Ian Gillan doing the role of Jesus on here. This is a really good album. If you have not listened to Jesus Christ Superstar, do yourself a favor and check it out. And then we've got the James Gang. I'm a big James Gang fan. I like them even after Joe Walsh left the band. But for me, this is their best album. Your album, and this happens to be a promo copy. But this is just such a good record. I mean, it's made to be played loud. So this is a real rock and roll album. You've got Lost Woman. You've got Bluebird. Stop. There's so many great songs on here, and they just jam out. If you've not listened to the first James Gang album, check it out. If you're a fan of James Gang Rides Again, then you're going to love this record. That brings us to Jefferson Airplane. And for me, it's Surrealistic Pillow, because you've got White Rabbit, you've got She Has Funny Cars, Somebody to Love, Coming Back to Me. Great song. I love that song. But for me, this is the best Jefferson Airplane album. And then that brings us to Jethro Tull. And like many of you, I'm going to pick Aqualung as my favorite album. This is the Steven Wilson remix, which is really good. I've also got the UHQR pressing, which I have not done a comparison with yet, but I'm very happy with this one. So there we go, Aqualung. And that brings me to Billy Joel and his album, Piano Man. This has got so many good songs. Captain Jack, the Ballad of Billy the Kid. We've got Worst Comes to Worst, Stop in Nevada, You're My Home. I love this record. I bought it when it first came out. And the nice thing about growing up with these records is that when they came out, you would listen to them over and over and over until the next album came out. So you really got to know them. Whereas, if you're younger person and you're getting into music now and you've got 15 Billy Joel albums to choose from, it's kind of hard to get into it, deep into the music, but that's what I loved about growing up with it, especially growing up with the Beatles, because I got to experience them in real time. You got an album every 6 months, you got a single every 3 months, and you got to just absorb it until the next one came out. So that brings us to Elton John. I could have picked Captain Fantastic and the Brown Dirt Cowboy because I love that album. But I went with this one because it's a double. You're going to get more music, and there isn't a bad song on it. So it was pretty much a toss-up. But I'm going to go with Goodbye Yellow Brick Road for my one Elton John album that I will keep forever. And that brings us to Janice Joplin. And I picked In Concert because you're going to get the best of her. You're going to get her live and raw, the way she was at her best. You've got Down on Me, Bye Bye Baby, Piece of My Heart, Summertime, Cosmic Blues, Move Over, Ball and Chain. It's got, all the classic songs. So for me, this was the one album that I had to pick. And that brings me to the letter K and Carole King, Tapestry. If there was ever a perfect album, it might be Tapestry. Such a fine, fine record. Great songwriter. She's written so many classic songs. But I mean, you've got, every song on here. So Far Away, It's Too Late, Way Over Yonder, You've Got a Friend. They're just, I couldn't do without this record. So Carole King. And that brings us to the Kinks. For me, I've got a lot of Kinks albums, but this is my favorite album. You've got some great songs on here. I love Gallon of Gas. There's a couple of different covers for this. This is one that has no song titles anywhere on the cover, which is why they put the hype sticker there. I don't know who thought that was a good idea to put a record out with no song titles on it, but you can also find this cover with the song titles actually listed on the back. But I love this album. Wish I Could Fly Like Superman. I have that on a 12-inch disco single. And then again, being a child of the 60s, AM radio ruled, and I loved everything that Gary Lewis and the Playboys did. They just did so many great songs. And of course, the musicians on all of their records were the Wrecking Crew. So how are you going to go wrong when you got the Wrecking Crew playing as your backup band? And Gary Lewis, to his credit, he's obviously, maybe you don't all know, but he's the son of Jerry Lewis. He was drafted. He could have gotten out of the Army because of who he was, I'm sure, but he didn't do it. He said, no, I'm going to do my duty and I'm going to serve my country. And he went and served, and when he came back, the music business had changed and he was no longer in vogue. So it was kind of the end of his career, but I have a lot of respect for him for what he did, and I love all their songs. And that takes us to the Little River Band, and I love their first album. This is an Australian pressing, so the cover is different than what you're probably used to seeing in the United States. But this is such a good record, and it's got the long version of A Long Way There, which just rocks. I really, really like this album. Curiosity Killed the Cat, Me and My Lady, I'll Always Call Your Name. Solid record. Check it out if you've not heard the first Little River Band album. It's not all pop, kind of adult-oriented radio kind of stuff like they did later. This is a little more rock. So then that takes us to Shelby Lynn, and this is the only Shelby Lynn album that I have, but I fell in love with this record when I heard it. Her voice, it's just so good. It's so well produced, and it's got one of those feelings like you just want to sit down with a glass of whiskey and sit back and lower the lights and just listen to this music. It's just beautiful music, great songs. I'm not a whiskey drinker, but I can imagine that that's what someone would like. You know, I could just envision someone doing that. Every song is great. And then that takes us to Led Zeppelin. And for me, it's Houses of the Holy. It's a little different than their other albums, earlier albums, but for me, I just like the flow, the feeling of it, the sound of it. It's one of those records that when I put on, I want to hear start to finish, and I never ever get tired of any Led Zeppelin. But for me, I just love this particular record. This is the later reissue with a bonus disc. And that brings us to Loggins and Messina. And for me, it's their second album. Their first album, Kenny Loggins with Jim Messina sitting in, was originally planned to be a solo album by Kenny Loggins, but Jim Messina put in so much and added so much to it that they became Loggins and Messina. And I've picked this particular record because it has the song Golden Ribbons, and it has Angry Eyes, Lady of My Heart, Good Friend. Just one of my favorite records, period. I was lucky enough to see them front row center on a tour they did 10, 12 years ago. And then that brings us to The Lovin' Spoonful, another classic 60s band. Had a lot of AM radio hits. This particular one signed by John Sebastian, who I just think is one of the great songwriters. Look at these songs that you've got on here. Didn't Have to Be So Nice, Daydream, Do You Believe in Magic, Summer in the City, Younger Girl. Just fantastic band. I have all their albums, but if I can only keep one, I might as well get a greatest hits. And that brings us to the last record in the letter L, and the last record for this video, and that brings me to Leonard Skinner. And the reason I picked this particular record is because it has the song Call Me the Breeze, which I absolutely love. I like every song on here. I like every song they've done, but the one with Call Me the Breeze is the one I gotta have. So great southern rock band. So second helping. So that brings us to the end of this video. I like to keep them as short as I can because I know a lot of you don't have time to sit around and watch a 20 or 30 minute video. So I do try to keep them as small as I can and just show you what I can, and then cut it up into segments so it's easier to watch. So I do appreciate it. Leave a comment if you'd like. If there's something that you agree with or disagree with, let me know. I appreciate reading all the comments. So until next time, ciao.